Okay, so basically, how this works is when you start prototyping an actual story, you don't go with your story content. Screw your characters. I hate to say this. Screw your characters. Screw my characters. Your characters don't matter if they have a weak foundation to build upon. No one's going to want to read your stuff or listen to your characters because they won't be appealing because the setting that they're presented in is not appealing. Okay, so first off, when you're starting a story or anything, when you're a writer, you want to do something like this. Okay, so I've listed the major characters, the little stars right there. This tells me just at a glance, just by looking, instead of having to look for multiple pages of writing and this and flipping multiple for hours. Okay, I can look at this list and actually say, okay, I got major players in this character. This one, this one, this one, this one. Okay, I know that these are my major players in this story. They're the ones that actually matter. Okay, the major events I know are in these breaks in the timeline. The major things, the shit gets real at these points. This one right here, this one right here. Okay, so at this point, I already know who these characters are, but for a normal storyboard, like an actual time frame, I would actually list the characters on a separate page or right here on the very small print over here, so that at a glance I can look at everything my story has in one glance. I don't have to shift and modify my thinking. I can see everything here. So let me break this down to you. So I haven't even mentioned what happens in the story. All I did is show the chronological age of everything, or chronological story of everything. So first, we know that Polly enters. Well, I'm not even saying how. I know how Polly enters, and that's part of the story. But I'm not worrying about how she enters. I just want to know where she enters. She's first. Kirk comes second. Then the high heavens descend. Section 25 is assembled and is on active status at this point. Then the very big baddie guy, Golden King, comes in. Kirk begins the fight, and then the first major story divider, which is the artificial apocalypse, starts, brought on by the high heavens. Okay, so basically, anyone that looks at this, okay, is going to know basically what's happening in the first part of the story. They don't actually know the smaller events and how these things go back, but they know basically what's going to happen, and that's very important. So now that we know this, we can work in pieces. We don't work at the whole bloody story and make it, just if you try to focus on everything at once, you're going to fail. You are going to fail. Robin Cook, Christopher Nolan, and the major writers of the 90s and 2000s use a system like this to make sure that they're extremely convoluted and very complicated and beautiful writing, okay, was coherent from the very beginning. Okay, so like this right here. So I'm going to start this block right here. This is the beginning of the story. So first off, I'm going to start with Polly. What happens when Polly enters the story? How does she enter the story? I'm only going to focus on Polly, okay? So I'm going to go for basic revisions of how Polly enters the story, and then I'm going to go with Kirk. How does he enter the story? Because right now, I know that he doesn't know Polly. They're unconnected. So having those two, working on those two separately is fine. Now, when things get more complicated, that's when you do multiple revisions. So the high heavens descends, and section 25 enters the story. At this point, things are getting complicated because people are meeting other people, and that's when you're going to start revising things. But the first couple of things right here, Polly enters, Kirk enters story, okay, that's where you really want to get a good foundation. You don't want to worry about anything. You do not do a one-shot story without knowing exactly where everything else is. You do a story in a step-by-step basis so that it's coherent and it's high quality. If you do not follow this format, then you're going to have amateur writing syndrome, okay, which is basically writing a whole freaking story, okay, and it's not going to be very good because you haven't kept to a story format. This is not a story format. This is just a chronological age. But this chronological list shows me exactly how I can adopt. So if I choose a story format, I can slot these in. So this will go like here, that will go like right there, this will go right there in the chronological order, and so I can use that for different story types. Basically, I could just slot them in without even having to worry about that. But this is independent of a story format. This basically makes it easy so I can actually slot and work on things without losing my place in things. I know I don't want to work down here. when I haven't even done this part yet? And that's all. Okay, that's good.